Teaching RE to primary school children is a challenge many teachers don't relish. So, how do four religious education practitioners approach the teaching of Christianity?
My name's Sue Fitzgerald and I'm head teacher of St John's CE First School in Kidderminster. As a member of SACRE, I've been involved in writing the agreed syllabus for Worcestershire.
My name is Izar Khan. I teach at Somerville Primary School in Smallheath in Birmingham. I'm head of science, collective worship, and I work with EAL children.
My name is Eamon Elliott. I'm a member of the theology department at Newman College of Higher Education in Birmingham, and I've been working there for 4 years helping to train teachers.
My name is Debbie Mallin. I'm a teacher at Dorridge Junior School in Solihull. I've been teaching there for 9 years. I was REN coordinator until a few years ago. Now I'm a member of SACRE.
So what have these people got to tell us about teaching some of the main themes and topics in Christianity?
Jesus died because God wanted him there to get all the bad things out of what other people have done.
And what have we got in every corner, nearly? A church. And there are many vicars or lay people are prepared to open the church to let people in. They're beautiful resources in church. And I think the children need to see the real thing, not just a mock-up. They need to see and they're available.
I think we have to be careful how we use places of worship, just like any field trip with children, that we don't just get them to fill in the worksheet. I've often found having a really quiet time to stop the bustle of them just milling about, having a quiet time where they sit and write and reflect about the place, more valuable than them sitting with their noses to a worksheet.
In this area we're very lucky because we have a different range of churches, and the vicars and the fathers in the area, they're quite willing to come into school and talk to the children, so that's a great resource. And I think higher up in the school, when children look at commitment and they look at the idea of being committed in religion, they find, talking to real people much more interesting, and it gives them insight into their lives as well.
Our Year 6 children go to Coventry Cathedral and look at the amazing artwork there, and they come back and do work on reconciliation, and very inspired from the work there. So art, I think, is a fantastic route into RE as well.
In one particular school that I was in quite recently, they used the local church as an opportunity to discuss the sacrament of marriage, and the children themselves had dressed up as the bride and groom, and the rest of the class were invited along as guests, and I thought it was absolutely wonderful way of teaching that particular area, and for the children to be actively engaged like that and inside the church. It was superb.
Our Year 1 children did exactly the same with baptism. They went to the local church and we had the parents, and they took the baby along, and godparents, and they went back to school and had a party. And what was important was after that they were able to use role play area to act out these things themselves. And I do think children learn a lot through role play. So they'd use the resources in the church. It was amazing to see them climbing up to the font. They all wanted to see the water and touch it as if they hadn't touched water before, but they thought it was really special.
Easter is all about when Jesus came back to life, and I think that Easter eggs aren't that special, it's just Jesus that's special.
I think one of the difficulties about teaching the Easter story is the fact that some teachers are uncertain as to how much detail you need to go into regarding the actual crucifixion of Jesus, and they have concerns about what should you be saying to the children, at what age is it appropriate for more information about it, etc.
In the school I'm in, we tend to build on the story of Easter. For instance, with the reception children, we always encourage parents and children to make an Easter garden. We have, I think, about 25% of the gardens that came back this time had something religious in them. Some of them had the hill with 3 crosses on. Some just had 1 cross. Some had a tomb. And, of course, there were all the visions of new life. And the teacher was able to talk through the Easter story through that with the children.
Earlier on, we talked more about the cross in Year 3, the symbol of the cross. We talk about Peter in Year 4, and in Year 5 you look at the Stations of the Cross, and again using art as our way in and telling the story. But I've certainly not had a problem with children being worried about the grisly nature of the story. I think maybe we patronise them a bit if we think they are going to be worried.
It's
because
very important.
children probably see a lot worse in some of the other things that they watch. And I think, handled well, it's a very, very powerful story.
And one we need to teach. I feel children need to think about death. Because they meet it, whether it's with a pet or a grandmother.
Absolutely.
And I think we need to prepare them for this.
At Somerville, as you know, a majority of our children are from other faith backgrounds. What we do, especially in Key Stage 1, to teach Easter, we tend to teach it through storytelling and telling the children about the events, but we do emphasise that this is from the Christian perspective, so that children are aware it's not their beliefs that we're telling them. We're telling them stories from a different belief system, so they have an understanding of other people around them.
So are the parents of the children here comfortable with you teaching Christianity, and particularly Easter?
Well, they are comfortable with it because we say that it is from a Christian perspective. We tackle the Islam side of it through worship, but in RE we do say that this is from a different faith, so the children have an understanding of it as well.
So you don't have any withdrawals from RE?
No, we haven't had any withdrawals from RE.
That's excellent.
The important message of Easter is the resurrection itself, and certainly, from the Christian perspective, that is what everything is about. The fact that Jesus did rise again, and I think ultimately that's the key message of Easter, and that's ultimately what we're aiming for as teachers, to make sure that children understand that's what the story of Easter is really about.
We've also used visualisation in Year 3. We take them on an imaginary journey. We use that quite a lot in Solihull. Getting the children to imagine themselves in the story, and you do a stilling, calming exercise first of all, and then there's maybe some music in the background, and you tell them the story via them being part of it, and they pretend to take their shoes off and they walk up the hill, and they can hear the crowd, and you describe the atmosphere, and they see the crosses, and then they go away again. And you then ask them what it felt like to be there, and that's Year 5. And the work they do as a result of that is awesome.
I learnt about Jesus died on Easter on a cross, and he came back on the next day or the other day after.
In my experience of RE, when it comes to stories of the parables and miracles, what I usually do to distinguish the difference between the two is try and explain parables in terms of this is a story and it has a message behind it, whereas stories about miracles, this is a sign of the power of Jesus, and this particular story signifies something that's happened at that particular time.
I think I've noticed teachers see parables as a really good topic for class assemblies, for example. Is it a good story to tell, and the children can easily understand what's going on. I think some of them are harder than others.
Certainly in the past I've had children ask me in relation to the story of the prodigal son, this particular boy had spent all the father's money, and yet when he came back he was forgiven, and the brother was left outside. And for some of the older children, they're quite ready to ask these questions and say, but why? He stayed with his father, he worked for his father, and yet it looks like he's being punished. And then you have to talk about this whole idea of reconciliation, and it's a really good learning point.
We start with the Good Shepherd with reception, and we literally have a mat for the grass, and the children will put the pond and the rocks in place, and the shepherd, and then from the way the shepherd looks after the sheep, then that is likened to Christ.
I think it's important for children that when they learn about miracles, that they can relate it to a religion. Within Islam, we believe that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, did miracles. At the same time, we also believe that Jesus Christ performed miracles as well. And these miracles, for example, like feeding the 5,000, etc., these miracles were a sign from God. Then sometimes, the concept of miracles happening now as well. They can relate it to things that happen in this world as well.
A Year 6 child will say, no, that can't possibly happen. That's rubbish, that wouldn't happen in real life. So getting them talking about miracles and say, but this is what Christians believe, and respecting what they believe is important. And maybe just getting them to wonder a bit that some things we just can't explain. And I think that's the joy of RE, is you've got that bit of awe and wonder at times that you can see children thinking, well, maybe there's a bit more to it than that.
When I pray, it's normally at night when I go to bed, and praying is all about Jesus. We do a prayer from the Bible and another prayer of our own.
I think within Christianity, the topic of prayer and the area of prayer is a very important one. And one of the things that I've learnt through teaching both in the classroom and talking to students is making sure that there's a clear understanding what prayer is about. And I think that the most important aspect of that is that children know it's an opportunity to spend time reflecting about themselves and their own lives and their relationship with God if they are from a Christian background, and not necessarily always having a formalised prayer, although that is very important as well. But the key message behind it, or the key understanding behind it, is that they do have that time to set aside, maybe once a day, and they can spend that time in quiet reflection about themselves and their relationship with God.
In our lessons at our school, we, for example, in Year 3, will teach the children about how Catholics use the rosary as a device to help them concentrate on their prayer. And the thinking about part of that then leads on to, well, what do you do to help you concentrate and think about something deeply? So again, using an artefact, learning a little bit about the rosary, because it's very complicated for Year 3, and then talking about how they can reflect on their own ideas about concentrating on and thinking about things.
What children need to know, that prayer is about just communication with God, but it's a communication, whatever sort of prayer it is, from the heart. It's got to be a real communication, hasn't it? And I think that children of the faith, whether they pray or not, learn a lot about what they feel, what they're really committed to, whether they have a faith, a belief in Christianity, a belief in any faith at all.
Well, I'd agree with you. I mean, for our children in our school, they do understand faith to be very important, and especially prayer. I mean, the concept of using prayer, not only in worship, but also in RE. They look at the Lord's Prayer in Christianity and then do comparisons with it with their own prayers that they say. And the children can see that there is a communication there, communication between man and a being, a God. And they can make the link between both faiths.
I think the Lord's Prayer is probably a good starting point for children who have very little faith at home. I would imagine they might well have heard it somewhere or heard a little bit of it, and so you can build on that little bit of knowledge. It's a prayer that includes all sorts of aspects of prayer, so you can give them an awful lot of knowledge, but also get them to reflect on what it might mean to them.
So you mean through the Lord's Prayer they were learning about different sorts of prayer? Because within the Lord's Prayer there is praise, there's worship, there's confession, there's thanks, and there's the asking for something, isn't there? And so that all aspects of prayer are covered through that.
Easter means to me that it's the beginning of a new life.